Hi, I'm Mike Messier. Welcome to Messier Mantra. I'm very happy to have a good friend of mine, Rajah Samaroo, a filmmaker, here on this episode of Messier Mantra. Rajah.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
Good to see you. And you've been doing stuff, a lot of cool stuff for a while. Today we're going to watch one of your films. Tell us, how did you get started? What made you interested in making films? And when did you get started?
I think like most people, I was always a film buff. Like most people in the film world right now, New England film scene, I've always been into films, and it was like a pipe dream to be able to make films. And you know, like 15, 20 years ago, when the technology was becoming more accessible, I was in graphic design world. So I initially studied multimedia design, and there was a little bit of video, TV production as part of that course. And so it was like a taste of it, but not like filmmaking. So filmmaking is very different from television, as you know, you might already know. But so I was always in media, and then after working several years in graphics and graphics production, I decided, you know what? Let me just go and just give it a shot. Let me just go and study, just go to art school and study film, because I had a technical background, but I didn't have, I felt like I needed a stronger artistic background, and sort of develop my sort of critical artistic eye. And that's when I went to school in Boston at Mass Art. And from there, graduated, and then I started specializing more in the art of cinematography. And so over the years, I've been part of countless productions.
Right.
I would say, I've been part of countless productions on over 50 films. And,
wow.
And they've been in a lot of festivals internationally in Rhode Island. And I've also directed a number of short films. I want to say a number of short films. I did a few that was part of my curriculum.
Right.
And then I did like a directorial debut, a short film, Warm Free Society. So I would say that was like my first film that I said, you know what, I'm going to invest a little bit of money and make a film and get professional actors. Well, get actors who are pursuing the craft of acting rather than just getting people that I know. So I consider that kind of like my first endeavor into like a film.
Worm Free Society is the film that we're going to share in full.
Yeah.
And I should say to the Messier Mantra audience, this is a special 1-hour episode, because we're going to show your whole short film.
Ah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, first ever 1-hour episode. So anything you want to tell us about Worm Free Society? We'll talk about it after, but anything that you should preface, or just want to roll it?
Actually, yeah, I'll preface it. I'll preface the film. Well, I told you before I was in graphic design, or production graphic design. So what you'll see in Worm Free Society is I drew a lot of my experiences from the production graphics world, and it was, let's put emphasis on the word production. Okay. Because it was production. We were designing car ads, and there was a number of car ads that had to be done every day. We had a huge stack of, we would punch in. Right. And then we would be designing ads and data entry and all that as part of the job, and then we would punch out. So it was, you'll see a lot of this in the film. Right, right. So I took it a little bit to the extreme into the sci-fi world. I took inspiration from some of my favorite filmmakers. Terry Gilliam, you may like Terry Gilliam. Brazil, yep. Yeah, Brazil. There's a lot of Brazil influence in this film. And another one, one of my favorite director, it would be, the film is Blade Runner.
Okay, so, gotcha. Yes, Ridley Scott?
Yeah, Ridley Scott.
Right.
I love that world, that kind of style. So it's a neo-noir.
There was a film called Dark City.
Dark City, yeah.
Underestimated film.
Yeah, I love Dark City, and so you'll see some of those inspiration in the style of that in a low-budget film that I produced. Produced and directed. Let's see what with people that I know.
Well, let's check it out, and we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Let's check out Worm Free Society right here on Messier Mantra.
How was it last night?
Consistent, just down the point.
I think I can make that up before dawn.
As long as we're over 950, we're okay.
You didn't get the new memo. New baseline's over 1,000 for next quarter.
I don't care about next quarter. What? Yeah, Paul? I need a coffee.
I stopped drinking the coffee because I was getting the headaches.
No, drink the coffee. That's the cure. Why? Oh. Have a productive day, Norman. I'm thirsty. Go to work, Mom.
What's this?
That's my coffee.
No, this is water. It's not allowed in this sector.
come from the coffee. Go home, Mom, and get some sleep.
Have you seen them?
Hi.
Hi.
I've seen you here before.
Yeah.
You work in Sector 1, right? I work in Sector 0, in the north end of the
Have
building.
you seen the worms? These little worms are on my desk.
Maybe you should clean your desk.
No, so you don't understand. It wouldn't matter because they're falling from the ceiling onto my desk. And they're just crawling around on
There's
my...
no worms in my sector. Maybe you should put in for a transfer.
Transfer, really?
Yeah. I have to go back to work.
Transfer.
Excuse me, sir? Yeah, I have a question. You gotta tell me about the worms. If you know, then you got to tell me, sir.
No. Your section has fallen into last place and will be flagged soon. Believe me, the president will be displeased. Have a cup of coffee and get back to work.
It's not my shift.
The numbers, Norman. The numbers.
We're at 9:50. One more drop and we'll be flagged. It'll be a record low in 14 years.
I need a minute.
What?
I need a minute.
The worms are harmless, Norman.
How do you know?
The company wouldn't put them here if they weren't.
You really think the company cares about our health?
They need to keep us alive, to keep working. Huh?
With 20% unemployment out there, we can be replaced like that.
Not so easily.
How come?
Because we are the lucky ones.
The lucky ones.
It has to do with our blood. Take it up with the man upstairs. That's what the others did.
What others?
The idiots!
Have some coffee, will you?
I'm not thirsty.
What's on your mind, Mr. Clark?
Found some worms on my desk. It's distracting me.
So that explains the number.
I don't think the worms are there by accident.
Did you read your contract thoroughly, Mr. Clark? Don't you think in a job like yours we need consistency? Some level of predictability?
I don't even know what my job is. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are for.
It's how you do your job, Mr. Clark, that is important.
Well,
You realize that the use of CPR fluid, aka Consistency Performance Regulation Fluid, or WORMS, as you call them, has been standard procedure in this company since January 1st, 2014.
well, I didn't see that in the posters.
It's in the contracts. Trust me. What's wrong with this picture, Norman? The employee shows up, i.e. you, and the worms do the work. It's a fair transaction of energy for dollars in a process that's 99.97% safe. Safer than drinking tap water.
I want a place to work where the worms aren't dripping from the ceiling.
Let's say I give you what you want. Then who will take care of our father?
I don't understand.
Are you that far gone?
He doesn't need me.
Are you certain?
Why don't you take care of him?
He seems quite happy and productive. These little guys are beautiful, aren't they? Maybe you're right, Norman. It is time for a change. Ahem. Take a sip, Norman. Suggestions, Big Brother. Everyone needs them. And our partners are eager to become the suggestors. We just simplify the process. It's better to give suggestions than to receive them, don't you think?
Jose was just a guinea pig.
Merely a pig. But we're all pigs, Norman. Pigs with fetishes. And you like the worms, don't you, Worman? Do you like working for the Green Sense Corporation? Say it. Say I like working for the Green Sense Corporation. Say I'm a pig and I like working for the Green Sense Corporation.
I'm a pig, and I like working for the Green Sense Corporation.
Finish the coffee, Norman.
Have some coffee, will you?
Now take a sip, Norman. Finish the coffee, Norman.
Drink the coffee.
Have a cup of coffee and get back to work.
We just simplify that process. Finish the coffee, Norman.
They come from the coffee bean.
Drink the coffee.
You know you want to sip, Norman.
Drink the coffee.
Go ahead.
Now drink the coffee. Those little guys are beautiful, aren't they? So, you've made a choice. I'd have to move you to a lower level. There's less pay and more hours.
No worms?
No worms. Consider yourself lucky you have a little brother looking out for you.
So, you fired.
Actually, I was promoted.
I've been with this company for 40 years now, and I know a promotion is never a good thing. You should turn it down.
You'd like that, wouldn't you, Father? Do you even know who the president is? Huh?
I was due a promotion 5 years ago when I met him. I chose to come back here after a day. I like it here. What's there not to like? My cup is empty. I'm thirsty.
Worm-Free Society, a film we just watched by my guest on this episode of Messier Mantra, Rajah Samaroo. Rajah, once again.
It brings back memories.
So that film, would you like to talk about the production of when that was filmed, or where the project stands now, or what's going on with Worm-Free Society?
Yeah, that was done a long, long time ago. So, what, 2017? So, I shot it 2011. So
Wow.
that's 6 years ago.
Wow, okay.
6 years, that's a long time.
Right.
And there's a lot has changed in the world, in the camera world, and just overall in general. But I think if you look at Worm-Free Society, it was very concept-driven film, and I think we were able to achieve some very stylistic, a very cool stylistic look to it. So yeah, it was a great experience working on that film, and I want to keep doing it and move forward and make more films. So Worm-Free Society, like 2011, it was shot.
Right.
I think it took me like until 2014 to get it out into
Yes.
the world. There's a lot of there's some effects in there that took longer. I had a lot of post-audio issues to deal with because we were shooting in a room in like a warehouse.
Right.
That had this transformer making a noise. So you have to be aware of your location.
Right.
And it's like ADR. Sometimes it's just not an option, especially if it's dramatic scenes like that.
Which, for the people that don't know, is audio after the
Yes, it's
fact,
audio.
so to
It's the audio that you loop in there. You can do, yeah. So, ADR was not really an option for me. I didn't like how it looked, but I used the transformer sound as part of the audio in the film. So
Right.
you'll hear it there, subtle. If you turn up the volume, you'll hear it. But definitely be aware of your audio when you pick a location, because the whole
totally.
film was set in one big warehouse, and we shot in different areas and transformed what was like a garage, just a big garage, and maybe back in the days, we just transformed that into a set.
And how many days of shooting did you have on this piece?
That
Rajah?
was 6 days.
Okay.
6 days, yeah. So we had 5 days at the one location, and then we had another location, actually right here in Mass, in this, I think, Weymouth area.
Yep.
Where we shot the president scene.
Right. And I like the graphics, or the special effects you use of the green in the eye, and then the green tie. There was a moment where in like about 3 seconds you go from a green tie to the green potion, so to speak, into the green eyeball.
Yeah, green is a very symbolic color in the film, because I was inspired by The Matrix for some of this. Just the color palette, the color tones that you saw in the film. That greenish color. It was inspired by The Matrix, and I thought it would be interesting, sort of push the green envelope. So at first, when I saw the green tie, I thought it was overkill, but it worked perfect for the film. The green portion, everything it brought harmony to the whole film, and I was proud of the production design on that film. Everything was done for like $3,000, and the location alone cost like $2,000.
Wow.
So it was like $1,000 production, that whole film.
And you've got actors who are dedicating their time, 10, 12 hours a day?
The entire crew, entire cast volunteered completely.
Wow.
So I didn't have to pay anybody. So that's a luxury I don't think I have today.
Well, that's one thing, as we both know, that as we do more projects and maybe people get a little more expectant of a paycheck, and rightfully so to some extent, depending on their level of experience or what they're bringing to the table. But it gets tougher, doesn't it, as we go along to make films with low to no budget, and then you try to get to that point where you're raising funds.
I did an interview yesterday where I was talking about the difference making films in the New England scene 10 years ago versus now. 10 years ago, I think we had more people interested in just doing it for fun, and now we have sort of a community that is a professional community, and they work in corporate. They also work in the LA films that come in the area, so they have all the professional skills and equipment, and so they expect to be paid. And certainly, if you need, there are certain members of a team that you need to function at a high level, and in that case, you have to pay your crew. So that luxury that I had back then is not something I have now. But it's also depending on your friends and, you know, at the time, because there's so many people making films. There's a lot of bad films being made, a lot of good films being made as well. But
and so just to kind of wrap up on Worm Free Society, the idea is maybe you put this one into a feature at some point in the breadth of your career.
I mean, I have a few ideas, but they've stuck with me over the years, and Worm Free is just one of them. It's just one idea that isn't going away, and so I would think like after my second feature that I would attempt would be a feature-length version of Worm Free Society. I have some ideas on how to transform it. I actually, from the version you saw, that you all saw today, I want to make some changes. I want to make the female character sort of a bigger, actually the protagonist.
Okay.
So I'm thinking of making her the protagonist because Norman is not is not somebody you want to follow for that whole period of time.
Right.
And if you look like another inspiration for that film, or sort of in the same world, Existence, we had like a team.
Okay.
We have a guy and a girl who were the main driving force of the story, and that's kind of like where I want to go with the feature-length version of this film.
Nice.
But I would need like $5 million to make that happen.
Well, things can happen, starting with the Messier Mantra. Keep in mind. But let's.
If you have $5 million, let's make a film.
Yeah, right.
We'll sell it for $20 million.
How can people get to you, Rajah? How can people contact you? Email or anything you want to share?
Yeah. I mean, if you have $20 million,
right.
info@rajahsamaroo.com. That's my email address. It's also my website, rajahsamaroo.com.
Okay, great. And now the project that you're working on now, tell us about the new one, the new feature film project.
Yes, I'm launching my first feature-length film, and I'm producing a sizzler for it, and hiring cast and crew in New England, and putting together what I call a tragi-comedy.
Right, right. And give us the idea is about kind of the spirit of the artist corrupted. And you tell us about it, and then I'll, because I know about it.
Well, I mean, you came by my table read, and you read the script. Why don't you tell me, what do you think it's about?
Well, I think it's about a filmmaker who's kind of an upstart filmmaker named Harvey, and he's made a low budget arts film. People come and they respond to it, they like it. What happens is Harvey falls into the temptation of bigger, better, faster, more money, the perils of collaborators that are less than artistic. They're more interested in a quick dollar. And Harvey kind of gets brought into a system where he can sell out his soul in order to make a buck. And the compromise is his art. And the payoffs of the ingenue, the potential to have sexual relations with a pretty woman, which is always tempting, and to make money, and to kind of be accepted and validated. And some of those themes come together in this piece, and then there's a metaphor cinematically with the film that he wants to make in his head, which is
let me jump in
here.
here.
We talk about your movie all day. Well, you go ahead.
No, you did a good job. You track along one of the plot lines of the story very well.
Right.
And I think coming from your perspective, you're also like a local filmmaker, and so I think you were taking from his perspective. Now, for me, this film is ultimately is about the relationship. It's called Psuedo Love.
Right.
And I wanted to do a story that explore infatuation and this kind of pseudo love in these relationships that we portray on the screen. And that's why it's called Psuedo Love. It's not just sort of the love of the idealized version of someone else, but there's also the love of cinema, love of imagery. Right. I wanted to capture all that in a story that I feel very powerful about. I mean, I felt very strongly about. So let me like sort of revise what you just said.
Yeah, sure.
But I like what you said. So it is about a filmmaker who falls in love with a drug-addicted actress.
Right.
And he sees her as his muse and his inspiration to make his next big film.
Right.
And she and at the time that he falls for her, his ex-muse comes into the picture, and the same time she sort of lures him into this like dark, seedy world of filmmaking. And one of the things I wanted to capture with this film is sort of the good and the bad and the unknown, the surreal,
Right.
about New England filmmaking, because it's like I've been part of this industry for the last 15 years, and I've had many experiences as I was doing it, so I put them all together in a story, or if you want to call it a meta story, about some of these people that I've seen, encountered, and I thought it would be a good place to start making my first features, to write about what you know.
Right.
And I feel like I know and I think a lot about the indie film, but I also didn't want to do something that is close to Hollywood, like, because the New England scene is much different from the LA scene or what you've seen portrayed already. And I also didn't want it to make it too petty. I wanted to make it like a real filmmaker trying to do well in this world, but you know, he gets distracted by these other things. And then the other story where you're getting into is the film within the film. And that part is somewhat based on my experience, because I did try to make film about a night, and I guess I wasn't ready to make that leap yet.
Right.
Just because I couldn't get the costume made at the time. And so it was a small idea, it was a short film idea. So I thought, like, wouldn't it be nice to create two worlds, which is the world of the film that I wanted to tell, and the experience of trying to make that and tell this pseudo love story. And so there's so much things happening in there. There's so many layers and so much to be discovered in it. And I thought, man, this is something that I can get really, I can get 100% behind. And so I'm taking the initial steps to do that by producing a sizzler reel.
Right.
Then after that, I would like to use that reel to raise funds to make the film.
So where do you stand as of this minute? May 2nd, 2017, but when people see this, things might have developed, so they can go to your website and look for updates.
Oh yeah, please do go look at it. Actually, I just set up the Instagram page. You can go Psuedo Love Movie.
Yep.
It's also on Facebook, so you can go, and I'll be announcing the cast very soon. I just had a table read. I just finished writing the 5th version of the script with Lenny Schwartz,
right,
who's a local, very talented, funny guy in Rhode Island. And so right now I'm at a point where the script is allowing the actors to produce some really interesting dynamic.
Right.
And I want to make the script better, but I think it's ready. It's ready for production. And I'm at a point now where I want to produce a sizzler reel towards the end of the summer, August. Last 2 weekends in August, I would like to produce that sizzler reel. And then from there, I would love to make the film next May.
How do you feel, without giving away the details of your actual script, unless you want to?
Yeah.
How do you feel? How is New England film circles, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, other surrounding states, different in your experience or from your perspective than, say, Los Angeles, New York City? Because that was when I was reading the script, I was like, where my feeling. Well, you answer first.
Different.
What do you
it's
think?
different because it's becoming like a micro version of that world.
Right.
So we see it like, let's say you were in an industry where there's billions of dollars floating around.
Yes.
And you have these personalities that exist. Now you go to another industry and there's thousands of dollars
pennies
floating
on the
around.
dollar.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
yeah.
you have. So I think ultimately what you see different is people coming from a variety of different backgrounds to be involved in filmmaking, right? Geez, I'm gonna sneeze. So you have a variety of different people. So you may have like an ex-lawyer come in. You may have like a part-time waiter.
Right.
You don't have professional actors.
Yeah.
Right. You have people who are doing this in sort of a hobbyist kind of way, and so. But the relationship to that multi-billion-dollar industry still exists, and I think that's a different. And I also think, there's there is, for lack of a better word, there is more desperation. And I think that makes it more of an interesting story because there is more desperate people here in New England, but not desperate as in, I don't think like, I mean, desperate might be the wrong word to describe it, but I think I think there is
conflicted.
Conflicted.
We're conflicted.
Are you conflicted?
Yeah, pretty much every day. Welcome to my life.
No, we're doing it for the. You know what? There's two. I'm sorry. So let's use the word desperate.
Okay.
But there's also a pure desire. I think there's also like a purity of purpose.
Right.
I think. Because if you're doing it for the love of it, then I think there's something there that's redeemable, and so in a sense, my main character is doing it because he loves film, and he loves the process, and he loves creating so much. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
So how is it different? In that way, it's different. It's like a micro version of this other world, but it's also very different because I feel like we have very passionate people that are part of it, and there's also the good and the bad. So I'm trying to strike a balance to the people who are aspiring and those who are abusing that world.
What's tough about, because I've noticed that there are negatives and positives about being in New England versus going to LA, but what I've noticed a few times is people that I worked with who did get up the gumption, the finances, $4 or $5 grand or whatever they had to go out west and relocate and look for work in the industry.
And then come back?
Well, either they came back, or if they stayed. I mean, I remember I did a student, as an example, I did a student film, at Harvard years ago, and it was just it was actually a 20-minute short film for a Harvard, film student. Me and one of my co-actors, he went out to LA. I didn't, obviously. Yeah. I checked in with him a few years later. I found, the guy and nice guy, and he said, "Well, Mike, I'm working as a bartender, and I get to meet all these famous people." And I said, "Oh wow!" He said he's listing celebrities that he served drinks to, and I said, "Wow, did you?" And I was naive, I guess, but I said, "Did you talk to them about the business? Did you give them a headshot? Did you ask for their advice? A manager connection?" He said, "No. If you do that, you get fired from your job." Okay. Because as a bartender, you can't talk shop to an actor who's trying to just have a drink. But I said, "Well, have you taken any classes?" He said, "No, I don't have time." I said, "Have you done any work?" He said, I don't have time to work because as a bartender, I'm just doing this because it's so expensive out here." So and this guy was more of a leading man type. This guy was your sturdy, 5'10", black-haired, structure. It looked like a guy who could be a good actor, but he is in LA, surrounded by the vibe, but he's not really progressing as an own artist because he's just trying to pay the bills as a bartender. And that type of scenario, another actress, a friend of mine, went out and was selling cars. Like working in a dealership and probably making good money, but she's spending her whole day at a car shop in LA because you got to pay those bills. And it's just kind of a sad thing. We're like, wow, I don't have the answer. I just said, I saw that pattern and I said, if I were to go to LA myself at this point without an established connection to a manager, an agent, or a gig, then I would just be really upset,
Well, I believe people that start out in New England, they first stretch their legs and they're like, okay, well, let me try New York. Then if you find success in New York, then I think, okay, well, let's stretch out to LA.
Right.
Or Atlanta now is becoming pretty hot for filmmaking. So I don't, for me, from my own personal experience, I've been stretching legs into New York. Last year, I was there for a whole year, last year in New York. I'm back here until this Sizzler gets produced, and then I'm going back to New York because I think I've produced enough of a body of work, so when I go to New York, I get hired. I can make a better living. I can triple my income by living in New York rather than staying here in Rhode Island.
Right.
So it makes sense for me to do that. Now, if I go to New York and then LA starts calling and they say, well, if it's a way to triple my income again to go to LA, then I'll do it. But I'm not going to jump to LA and then not be ready for that world, not have the portfolio to back it up. But that's just me, and I take things very cautiously. So I think you can certainly risk it and roll the dice and go for it. And it all depends on the individual, I think. So I don't think you can put like broad strokes and say, well, this is, you know, this is good or bad idea. I think if you just, I think if early on you just say, you know what, I just want to spend that 5,000, go to LA and see what the scene is like, and then come back. There's nothing wrong with that. I think you should do it and go for it. You may get lucky. You may develop a connection now that can be valuable later on. But for me, I'm not ready for that LA world.
I've seen some you know, and I was lucky I had an audition for an HBO pilot in Los Angeles, and when I was out there I met a few people, but one guy I met as a filmmaker was an editor in one of Tarantino's early films, like an assistant editor, and I was like, wow, you worked with Tarantino, and he knew all these inside stories and of Tarantino's early big stuff, but it didn't help my friend very much because he worked for Tarantino, but it didn't get him advanced, and years would come and go for this guy who's very talented, very smart film guy, and just things, you know. So it's I think it's tough everywhere.
Yeah. So here's my approach now. I think like you have to invest the time in creating great art, right?
Right.
So you can learn your craft, number one, and number two, find the right people to collaborate with, and then create something amazing here. So the New England is such a beautiful place to film, and you have so much freedom, and you do have access to really talented crew, and you have, if you just jump to New York, and between New York and New England, you have access to a lot of talented actors that you can use in your film. So there's enough of a ground here to produce really amazing work. And so what I want to do with my film Psuedo Love, with Worm Free Society, is to get the best I can get and make the best film that I can do with the resource, the talent, and the skills that I've developed over the last 15 years. And I think you really have to develop yourself, see what's working, adjust, and then improve on it. And that's kind of, and rather than sort of look for an easy, there's no easy way. There's actually no easy answers. It's hard work. It's hard work and trial and error.
And there's no table of contents either, because one thing as an acting coach I'll find is that students will want to know, well, how do I get to be a great actor? And even if I do, Rajah, say, read these 6 books that I read, take these classes with these other actor coaches around.
You know what? I have a suggestion for people who are looking to be good actors. Read this book called Directing Actors.
But is it Mamet or is it? No, it's
Judith.
Okay.
Judy Weston, I think that's her name.
Okay.
That's the author, because it's almost like a way of reverse engineering what the director is looking for, or the process. It's very process oriented. It's just getting very enveloped in the process of acting and understanding what the directing is seeking. Because I feel like when you're working with a lot of local directors, they don't know how to direct.
Correct.
I would say 95% of the people who call themselves directors have no idea what the craft of directing involves. So I think as an actor, you have to reverse engineer what they're saying, because a lot of directors come from a business background.
Right.
So in a business background, you are taught to be result oriented. Result or goal oriented. Well, result oriented is the opposite of what requires to be a great director and a good actor, because that is process oriented. It's understanding the process, practicing, failing, trying again, trying different options. This is not, in the business world, that's not what it is. Business world is profit, is getting there right away, and it's speed and efficiency.
Yeah,
Well, speed and efficiency also exists in the acting world. So I would recommend reading the book called Directing Actors, just as a way to reverse engineer what the director may be asking you, but then you have to spend some time figuring out what exactly you can do internally to get them that result. You have to really direct yourself, I think, because there's so many bad directors in the that I've come across in the New England scene working as a director of photography.
And now this film is...
It's not, I'm sorry, not bad directors, they're just lacking knowledge. They're lacking the real knowledge of the craft.
Learning on the job, so to speak.
Yes, they're learning on the job. But
we could talk all day about this, because there's so many projects.
And that's what my film Psuedo Love is about also. It's about Harvey, who has spent so much of his sort of his energy developing his craft, developing his art, and there's so much purity in his vision, but then he meets his polar opposite, which are people that's involved in some seedy film
Right.
production. They have no respect for the craft, and on top of them not having any respect for the craft, they're more successful and at the business end of things than he is. So that's one thing that I felt very like strongly about. So I have to make a film about that.
And there's a moment in that scene, I won't give away too much, but basically Harvey's given a choice. Hey, look, you're going to sign the contract, you're going to take the paycheck, or we're going to get someone else. And he's put in that crucial moment, which I think in your script was quite interesting and resonant.
Well, I mean, I think Mark did a great job of playing that character, but he sort of I didn't really want to make it that obvious that it's money or it's sort of money or your soul kind of deal. I wanted to be more like, it's subtle. Here's some money.
Right. Or do we find the next guy?
Yeah, here's some money, like we're going to pay you for 2 weeks of your time, give us, but in that 2 weeks we own you, you're going to play ball with us. And a lot of times, like, actually I would say 99% of the time I get hired as a director of photography. Someone come in and say, well, here's your schedule. And sometimes they come in and say, well, here's how much here's our budget and here's the schedule. Well, how do you know the schedule if we didn't work together already and develop a shot list, but not only develop a shot list, but break down the shot list into, well, this jib shot is going to take an hour. Do we have an hour in our schedule this day? Like, you can create all the most fantastic looking shots in the world, but if you didn't create the time in the schedule to execute those shots, then it's just
it's just
a dream.
Right.
It's just a dream list.
Right.
A shot list that's produced with intelligence of knowing how long it takes to execute is the cornerstone of creating. It's the cornerstone, I think, of making great cinema with limited resource. And so that's why, that's why you see a lot of poorly produced films out there. But there's also some good ones. There's the good ones comes there. I mean, I went to the Cine Film Fest a few days ago, and there's some good films. But I went to an international screening, so I don't know what the local. Sometimes the local films just don't match up in terms of quality to the international ones.
Well, before you burn all your bridges, I want to thank you for coming on Messier Mantra, because it goes quick. We showed your whole movie, and the first ever 1 hour episode of Messier Mantra flies by.
Yeah.
But is there anything you want to say as a mantra? Is there any parting words of wisdom?
Mantra. I think I pretty much give you my entire mantra right there. The Rajah Samaroo mantra is preparation.
Yeah.
And filmmaking is a process-oriented endeavor, and you definitely, the more you invest in the process, the better the result will be. And so, as a filmmaker, I encourage people to join me in the process to make great films.
Rajah Samaroo, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Thanks for watching this episode of Messier Mantra. We'll see you next time.
Awesome.